Peace be upon you. I am not a follower of the Al-Daheeh show, but one of his contentious episodes caught my attention. I watched it and understood the approach of Al-Daheeh, so I will not be commenting on this particular episode, but on his approach in general. The episode is titled, "What an Amazing Coincidence." Al-Daheeh begins this episode with the introduction that some events seem highly unlikely, but if you change certain assumptions, their occurrence becomes more likely or almost inevitable. He presents an example of a coin. If you toss it in the air, assuming it has two different sides, then the probability of getting a head is 50%. Whereas, if you assume that the two sides are heads, then the probability of getting a head is 100%. Fine, Al-Daheeh, so what? He tells us to look at the universe we live in. Its physical constants are precisely tuned. Any slight change and the universe would collapse and there would be no planets, no life, or anything. This makes us think that this universe is made for us. But he continues, it isn't necessarily so, as a slight change in probabilities can explain this fine-tuning of the physical constants of the universe. What is this slight change? He tells us to assume there are infinitely many universes. In other words, a multiverse each with different physical constants, and by chance our universe happened to have the physical constants suitable for our existence. In conclusion, no one intended to fine-tune this universe we live in. Instead, our universe came to existence by chance. A slight change in assumptions, i.e., a multiverse, led to a big change in the result. Our universe came to existence by chance. Before I give a general description of this argument, let's discuss it scientifically. If I ask you, do you see this room? What is the probability that the number 5 appears 10 times simultaneously? Where would it appear? On the spinning wheels? Which wheels? The lottery wheels. There are no lottery wheels in the room. Assume there are lottery wheels. Whose assumption is this? Also, who spins the wheels? You must assume that 10 boys are spinning them. What? Let's get back to your question without any additional assumptions. The probability that the number 5 appears 10 times in an empty room like this is exactly 0%. Al-Daheeh played the game of assuming wheels and children in an empty room. When you ask, what is the probability that a universe exists with precise physical constants that suit human life? I'll say, we should ask about the probability that a universe exists in the first place before we discuss the words constants and precise. Without a creator, there is no universe to begin with, no wheels and no room. There is no matter to form a universe. Thus, it is nonsense to discuss the probabilities without any matter on which to base these probabilities. You may say, Al-Daheeh did not deny the existence of the creator. He simply talked about math and probabilities. No. Let's get things straight. It is not possible to overlook the issue of matter, which, as you claim, has formed infinite multiverses. You have one of two choices. Either you admit the existence of a creator only to solve the issue of the existence of matter. Then, you may say that this creator only created matter, then left it to react and form randomly and unintentionally. By sheer coincidence, a universe suitable for our existence emerged. What a funny, self-contradicting assumption, to think of an infinitely creative God who creates matter with tiny atoms and organized particles that reflect his wisdom, power, and knowledge. Then, he starts acting randomly and creating many things without purpose. One atom of this matter can answer this absurd perception. Your second choice is to say, no, there is no God. So, where did matter come from? It created itself. Is this science or absurdity? No, this is a scientific theory which we will call the spontaneous creation of matter. First, please pay attention. Not everything called a theory is respectable or worthwhile. I explained in detail in the episode, The Pancake Theory, and the episode, All Roads Lead to the Myth, that the word theory is put in front of funny absurdities to give them prestige, even though they are utter nonsense. Second, do you remember Louis Pasteur and Francesco Redi before him in the 17th century? Both of them disproved abiogenesis, which is the theory of spontaneous generation of living organisms from inanimate objects. Uneducated Europeans used to think that flies are spontaneously generated from garbage and that mice are spontaneously generated from rotten meat. Pasteur and Redi before him invalidated this backward theory and proved that living organisms, such as flies, actually originate from microorganisms, such as fly eggs. Nowadays, anyone who says matter is created from nothing, matter creates itself, is more backward than the uneducated Europeans of the Middle Ages. Not only is he saying that living organisms are spontaneously generated from inanimate objects, but also that inanimate objects are spontaneously created from nothing. Apply this to the example of the room with spinning wheels. If we ask this person, "Where are the spinning wheels and children?" he would say, "Assume they are spontaneously generated." We will call this assumption the autogenous wheels theory and the autogenous children theory. Is this science or absurdity? Fine, let's ask ourselves, what compelled them to introduce such absurdities and theories? What made the existence of matter a problem, and the fine-tuning of the universe a problem, and the beginning of life on Earth a problem, and the existence of perfected living organisms a problem? All these became problems because of their denial of the only correct, rational, intuitive, scientific explanation, that all of this needs a creator. When you exclude this only explanation, everything unravels, the entire existence becomes a problem. You resort to spouting absurdities and ignorance to address these problems, and label it as theories. We thoroughly explained, over more than 25 episodes, on the chance evolution theory, how the pseudoscience missionaries decided in advance on the result they wanted to reach, no creator for living organisms, then roamed aimlessly in every alley, defying reason and science to prove that there is no creator. The spontaneous generation of matter, the infinite multiverse, the spontaneous generation theory, and the chance evolution. These are all atheistic delusions meant to cover up the gaps created by denying the existence of a creator. Al-Daheeh and his like address each of these funny delusions separately in intermittent episodes and try to convince you of them, as if they are saying, let's set aside the issue of the origin of matter and evolution for now and focus on fine-tuning. Then they try to convince you that fine-tuning by itself provides no evidence for the existence of a creator. If you are convinced, they will try to convince you in another episode that the perfection in living organisms provides no evidence either. Eventually, all your evidence for the creator's existence will collapse because of the myths and idiocies they call theories. This is the first point. Before Al-Daheeh starts talking about probability, ask him, where does the matter on which you base your probabilities come from? Notice how Al-Daheeh evaded this most important question and took us straight into the maze of probabilities with his misleading words, as we shall see. Second, these infinite universes you talk about, Al-Daheeh, other than ours, are they fine-tuned or not? In other words, are they consistent, running according to precise physical constants, or not? The answer must fall into one of two possibilities. Either they are random universes without planets or galaxies, because matter cannot arrange itself, or with a jumble of destructed planets. Let's look at this scenario. Imagine you are sitting at your desk and every second a pile of iron and wires lands on your desk, which you remove. Suddenly, a fully charged iPhone with all kinds of applications lands on your desk, ready to use. Would you conclude that this device came together, fully charged and loaded with applications by chance? If you don't believe this absurdity, how can you believe that this universe, which is infinitely more complex than an iPhone, came by chance? Again, we go back to the first point. Whatever shape matter comes in, it must have a maker, let alone something as intricately designed as a mobile phone. This is the first possibility, Mr. Al-Daheeh, that the universes you are talking about are not fine-tuned. The second possibility is that they are fine-tuned and harmonious, but with different physical constants than our universe, which does not allow life to exist in these other universes. Okay? Imagine you see a car that is suitable for human use, and billions of other well-designed cars with fully integrated parts, but not suitable for human use. Would you conclude that this car and all other cars emerged by chance, or that there is a knowledgeable maker behind all of them? If we had an infinite number of fine-tuned universes, we would have infinite proof of the existence of a meticulous, wise, capable, all-knowing creator. Now let's move to the third point. Al-Daheeh repeats the term physical constants. Can physical constants even exist without a creator? Even if we overlook the fact that nothingness does not create matter, can nothingness make matter run meticulously without chaos? One of the top absurdities of atheists is their attempt to make the order in the universe, which requires one who orders, a substitute for his existence. Imagine that you place $1 on your desk every day. On the first day, you put $1, on the second day, another $1, and so on. After 10 days, someone comes along and says, "Nobody put this money here." How do you know? He answers, "I know how this money was collected, $1 every day. Therefore, it was created by the $1 a day law." Is this person a scientist or a con artist? Laws, dear viewers, are merely attempts to describe regular phenomena. Laws are not creators. Light doesn't choose to travel at 300,000 kilometers per second, nor does the law of the speed of light cause light to travel at this speed. The term law is a description, not an independent, willful doer who knows what to do and how to do it in an orderly way. When light travels at a constant speed, this means, logically, that there must be one who caused it to travel consistently at this speed. Say I type a poem using a keyboard at a speed of 100 words per minute. Imagine if someone reads the poem and says, "This poem was not written by anyone. How did it come about then?" He answers, "It was written by the law of 100 words per minute." This stupidity and feigned ignorance was practiced by the ingrate atheist and physicist, Stephen Hawking, the inventor of the multiverse myth promoted by Al-Daheeh. Hawking, in his book The Grand Design, says, "Because there is a law of gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing." Dear viewers, the existence of a law means there is one who made it a law and who arranges things thus. It is evidence for the originator, not a substitute for the originator. Laws mean that nothing in this universe behaves randomly. So, not only does Al-Daheeh evade the issue of the origin of matter, he also deceives you into thinking that our universe could have come by in a fleeting moment when the physical constants became just right, and that was that. Furthermore, these constants persisted thanks to the law of gravity, the speed of light law, and other laws. It is as if a law is a doer that has powers. The fourth point. Al-Daheeh is practicing laughable oversimplification when he compares our extremely complex universe to the rise and fall of the stock market or to profit and loss. Do you know, dear viewers, what the fine-tuning of the universe means? Let's look at the simplest thing in it. There are more than 90 chemical elements discovered on Earth. The neutrons and protons of each are arranged inside precisely sized nuclei. The nuclei attract electrons that run in orbits with precise dimensions. These elements react together following consistent chemical laws to give the chemical compounds necessary for life. Once again, these laws need a masterful maker and regulator. Precisely regulated gravity such that we don't fly in the air or get stuck to the ground. Earth rotating at a precise speed to keep the succession of day and necessary for sleep and work. A precise distance from the sun so that we don't burn or freeze to death. Water evaporation point, air density, and the proportion of elements in the air, all suitable for our lives. Trillions of planets and stars traveling at appropriate speeds in very precise orbits. Even if you overlook the question, where did the matter come from? Or the question, who set the physical constants and who fine-tuned them? You will still need to calculate, even at the level of a single hydrogen atom, the probability that the size of a hydrogen nucleus is what it is, not smaller or bigger. What is the probability that the electron is this far from the nucleus, not smaller by 1 or 2 angstrom or even a part of an angstrom, and not bigger by 1 or 2 parts, or even a million parts of an angstrom, or any of the countless number of possibilities in 3-dimensional orbits? What do these proper dimensions and relationships that make hydrogen suitable for reactions and building the components of living organisms mean? Then examine carbon, nitrogen, and the rest of the elements similarly. We're still only talking about the simplest units that make up matter. There is no significant probability that the particles of any single atom were randomly arranged in such a way. Yet Al-Daheeh tries to compare not just one atom but the entire universe and everything in it to binary probabilities, loss or gain, heads or tails, etc. Then he tries to convince you that you can assume a number such as 1/10 to a large power, and as long as there is a number, there is a possibility. Is this idiocy or science? The fifth point. Is the assumption of a multiverse based on empirical science? Are spontaneous, coincidental, infinite multiverses based on empirical science? Are there any recorded observations of it or its effects? Can you answer us, dear advocates of the multiverse? Can you tell us what these universes are made of? What kind of atoms do they have? How many elements do they have? What laws describe their systems? Atoms need very precise physical constants that bind neutrons with protons and electrons, and any manipulation of these bonds results in a nuclear explosion. So are the constants maintained in the other universes? If they are, how can this be? And if not, what are the alternative constants of these universes? Why don't these universes collide with one another? Why haven't they destroyed our universe, given that they are infinite? Don't universes expand? And since they do, why don't they collide with each other and our universe? You may say, because there are huge distances between them. Well, where did this space come from? Does your multiverse theory answer any of these questions? In other words, is it based on empirical science, or any recorded observations of it or its effects? Or is it a stupid response from someone cornered, attempting to answer the question, who created the universe if not God? The cornered person answers, the multiverse, period, as if we are discussing some air bubbles. Keep in mind, dear viewers, that we don't deny the possibility of other universes existing. Perhaps they do, and perhaps not. What we deny is the assumption of their existence by chance, just to explain the fine-tuning. Someone might object and say, well, aren't you also claiming the existence of a God even though he is not observed through empirical science? Our answer is that we do not restrict knowledge to empirical science, as you do. Instead, knowledge is based on reason, innate nature, testimony, senses, and experimentation. All of these produce empirical science, in addition to certainty in the existence of the unseen, as we explained in detail in our episode, The Kidnapped. Rationally, the causal chain must end with a first cause. This first cause must be independent of everything for its existence, and should not be governed by the laws of matter. We should not require its observation through empirical science, as then we would enter an infinite regress with no beginning. That is rationally impossible, as we explained in the episode, Why is the existence of a creator a necessity? Empirical science records the effects of this creator and attests to his knowledge, power, and wisdom. And if you deny the observation of such effects, you are also denying empirical science itself. The issue is not that believing in one creator is easier than believing in an infinite multiverse. It is not a matter of ease, but a matter of reason versus irrationality, knowledge versus absurdity. The sixth point, Al-Daheeh makes vague statements on unspecified matters. For example, he talks about normal distributions versus Cauchy distributions. Al-Daheeh says,
what happens with a probability of 1 in 3.5 million, assuming a normal distribution could happen, with a probability of 1 in 16, assuming a Cauchy distribution?
What could happen? What are you talking about, Mr. Al-Daheeh? As an associate professor, who works extensively with statistics and curves, and publishes them in scientific papers, I know that his statements are nothing more than empty, stitched-together claims, and his use of scientific terms is just to impress. The point is that Al-Daheeh ends with, of course you do not understand anything but what matters is. Then he gives you a general rule, and to give credibility to his words, he uses a foreign language to show that he is an intellectual who takes science from its sources. He also cites foreign scholars. So, if Richard or John said something, it must be true. You don't understand anything, but the foreigner has said so. So let this foreigner do your thinking for you, because you, my dear Arab follower, are just a beast, and foreigners are the ones who understand. Those who are inwardly defeated and embarrassed by their religion and ummah are captivated by foreign expressions. Note, dear youth, that it was not the absurdity of the multiverse theory or all the other atheistic theories, mainly concerned with denying the existence of the Creator, that enabled humans to explore space or perform useful surgeries to improve human health. These atheistic theories are completely worthless, as we explained in the episode, Is the theory of evolution truly beneficial? The seventh point, To convince you that the universe came to existence by chance, he provided more proof.
The universe could have been anything, but that fact that we exist in it puts constraints on the universal constants, not vice versa.
Do you know what this statement means? Imagine you want to travel from Cairo to Istanbul. For this reason, plane parts will be generated from nothing and get assembled to carry you and fly without crashing, or escaping the Earth's atmosphere into space. Then it will land on the right runway at Istanbul Airport, quietly and safely. All of this will happen by coincidence, just because you want to go to Istanbul, not vice versa. It is not that a plane must exist, and must be designed with intention for you to fly to Istanbul.
The universe could have been anything, but that fact that we exist in it puts constraints on the universal constants, not vice versa.
Now, dear viewers, let's get to the bottom line. Al-Daheeh tells you that if you assume that the two sides of a coin are heads, the probability of getting ahead in any toss is 100%. A slight change in assumptions leads to a big change in probabilities. Therefore, it is possible that our universe came into existence by chance with a slight change in assumptions.
With a slight change in assumptions, something effectively impossible could become very likely to occur.
Now let's examine this slight change in the assumptions. 1. Matter created itself from nothingness. Number 2. Nothingness made protons, neutrons, and electrons, and smaller particles from this matter. Number 3. Nothingness organized the bonds between these atomic particles. Number 4. Nothingness created the right number of atoms, and performed reactions between them by fixed laws to make the required compounds. Number 5. Nothingness produced the planets, stars, and galaxies out of these atoms and compounds. Number 6. Nothingness made each of them go around in its specific orbit. Number 7. Nothingness established the required physical constants in the universe and on Earth. Number 8. Nothingness fixed the physical constants and prevented them from changing. Number 9. We will make similar assumptions to these 8 assumptions for an infinite number of universes which we know nothing about. Number 10. We will assume that nothingness prevented our universe from crashing into these universes despite its expansion and movement through this infinite multiverse. 11. We will also assume that nothingness created the space where all of this is happening. Number 12. We will make many other assumptions so that the nothingness can produce the diverse life forms. Do you see? A very slight change in assumptions to lead to the result that the fine-tuning in the universe happened by chance. Do you see, dear viewers, how when you follow untrustworthy people, they start with entertainment and jest and end up casting doubts about your religion? Nonetheless, praise be to Allah, many young men reacted to Al-Daheeh's words with rejection and disapproval. In this episode, I wanted to show how his words contradict reason and knowledge, so that we can be certain that true science cannot ever come up with anything that contradicts our religion. Praise be to Allah. After all of this, remember that Allah Almighty says, "Indeed, Allah holds the heavens and the earth, lest they cease, and if they should cease, none could hold them in place after Him. Indeed, He is forbearing and forgiving." And Allah Almighty's words, "It is the work of Allah, who perfected all things. Indeed, He is acquainted with that which you do." And know the true meaning of Allah Almighty's words. Allah, there is no deity except Him, the ever-living, the sustainer of all existence, the sustainer of His creation, without whom nothing can exist for even the blink of an eye. Peace be upon you.